Chosen one, don't skip. A decision your soulmate made in silence is about to change everything. God says, my child, listen closely. Something has shifted inside the heart you keep remembering. It did not happen during a loud conversation. It did not begin with a public promise. It happened quietly, when nobody else was watching. Your soulmate reached a decision in silence. That decision began after many nights of resisting the truth. They tried to stay busy. They tried to bury every feeling beneath ordinary routines. Yet your memory kept returning during their quietest moments. I saw each moment. I saw their hand pause above a glowing phone screen. I saw them search for your name, then close the page. Their silence was not empty. It was carrying a choice they feared making. My beloved child, this message is not asking you to chase anyone. It is asking you to remain peaceful while hidden healing unfolds. Pray instead of worrying. Trust my timing. I am already working where you cannot yet see. If these words speak gently to your heart, comment Amen. Let that word become your choice to trust me today. Something meaningful has begun, but the deepest reason remains unseen. The decision came after your soulmate faced an uncomfortable memory. Rain touched their window while the room stayed completely still. An old photograph rested beneath a folded letter. They had avoided both for months. That night, they finally reached for them. Their hands trembled slightly. They remembered the moment fear became stronger than honesty. They remembered words left unfinished and kindness misunderstood. They also remembered your patience. That memory changed them. For the first time, they stopped blaming distance for everything. They looked within. My child, they saw how pride protected their wounds. They saw how silence became a hiding place. They saw how love frightened them because love required truth. That truth brought tears. Not dramatic tears. Quiet ones. The kind that fall when the heart finally stops defending itself. They whispered a simple prayer. They asked me to remove every false motive. They asked me to teach them courage. Then they made the first part of their decision. They would no longer run from what your connection revealed inside them. Yet that was only the beginning. You may wonder why this choice remained hidden from you. My child, some decisions need roots before they need words. A promise spoken too early can collapse under pressure. I allowed silence to become a place of testing. Your soulmate needed to know whether this change was real. They needed to choose healing without receiving immediate comfort from you. That mattered. Their decision could not depend on your reply. It had to rise from conviction. So they began changing small things. They stopped returning to people who encouraged confusion. They removed reminders that kept old wounds alive. They became more careful with their words. They opened their Bible before opening their messages. They sat near an empty chair one morning, listening to soft worship music. Morning light crossed the floor. A quiet cross hung above the doorway. In that stillness, they understood something important. Loving you was not the only decision before them. Becoming emotionally honest was the deeper one. They could not approach your heart while remaining divided inside. So they chose integrity first. That silent choice will shape everything that follows. My beloved child, separation did not mean your prayers were ignored. It revealed what both hearts needed to release. You needed freedom from constant guessing. Your soulmate needed freedom from fear. I was not teaching you to accept confusion. I was teaching you to recognize peace. I was not asking them to perform love. I was teaching them to practice truth. While you were learning not to force an answer, they were learning not to hide from one. The waiting carried purpose. It exposed patterns that affection alone could never heal. You began noticing your own strength. You stopped checking every silence for rejection. You started breathing without needing instant proof. Your soulmate noticed changes too. They felt the absence of your chasing. At first, it unsettled them. Then it awakened respect. They realized your love was never weakness. It was grace. They also realized grace should never be used as permission to delay growth. That realization became the second part of their decision. They would not return with empty words. They would only move when their actions could support what their heart wanted to say. There is a reason the number 777 may touch your attention today. Do not treat it as a guarantee or secret code. Let it simply remind you of spiritual completion and renewed trust. Your soulmate has been confronting unfinished places within themselves. One evening, church bells sounded across a quiet street. They stood outside longer than expected. Their breathing slowed. They remembered a prayer you once shared. You had asked for peace, even if peace required distance. Those words returned with surprising force. They finally understood that real love does not demand control. Real love becomes willing to honor what is right. Inside that moment, their decision grew clearer. They chose to stop letting fear decide their future. They chose to prepare for an honest conversation. They did not choose a perfect outcome. They chose a truthful approach. This difference matters. My child, I do not build restoration upon pressure. I build it upon changed hearts, wise boundaries, and sincere repentance. Something began moving that evening. Yet one final inner battle still stood between intention and action. Your soulmate feared that you had already closed the door. That fear sat heavily within them. They imagined your silence as rejection. They imagined your healing as proof that they had waited too long. Their mind created many endings. Still, they did not return to old habits. They brought those fears to me. Their prayer was simple. Lord, help me accept truth without running. That prayer revealed growth. Before, they wanted certainty before obedience. Now, they were willing to act with humility. They wrote several sentences on a blank page. None sounded right. They crossed them out. They began again. They did not want to manipulate your emotions. They did not want to mention destiny as pressure. They wanted to acknowledge what happened. They wanted to tell you what had changed. Most importantly, they wanted to respect your freedom. This is where their silent decision became mature. They chose to approach you without demanding anything. They chose honesty without control. That kind of courage does not arrive loudly. It enters like morning light, slowly revealing what darkness kept hidden. You who are listening, guard your heart without hardening it. Peace does not mean pretending the past never hurt. Forgiveness does not remove wisdom. Hope does not require you to ignore boundaries. The decision your soulmate made can change everything because it changes how they will stand before you. Yet your decision matters too. You are not being prepared to lose yourself again. You are being prepared to listen from a place of strength. When the right conversation comes, you will not need to beg for clarity. You will recognize whether their actions carry truth. You will notice whether peace remains present. You will understand that love should feel honest, not confusing. My child, do not rehearse every possible answer. Stay present. Let me guide your response when the moment arrives. Share this message with someone who needs hope today. Remind them that hidden growth can happen without public proof. Still, never build your life around guesses. Build it around faith, wisdom, and peace. The next movement will not ask you to abandon discernment. It will reveal why your soulmate's decision was delayed until now. There is one detail they have not yet spoken aloud. It is not a dramatic secret. It is a personal promise they made while kneeling beside their bed. The room was dark, except for a narrow line of light beneath the door. Their phone rested face down. The unsent message remained waiting. They placed both hands together and admitted what they truly feared. They were not only afraid of losing you. They were afraid of becoming the person your love required them to become. Then something changed. They understood that growth was not a price for receiving love. Growth was necessary for living honestly. In that moment, they stopped asking how to bring you back. They began asking how to become trustworthy. That was the decision. It was quiet. It was costly. It was real. My beloved child, this choice is about to change everything because it will change the next words they offer you. But before those words are spoken, I need you to understand what happened immediately after that prayer. A single action followed their decision, and when you learn what it was, their silence will finally make sense. Hold your peace. Keep your heart open to wisdom. Type Amen. My child, listen carefully. The action that followed their prayer looked small from the outside. Yet it required more courage than every speech they had rehearsed. Your soulmate opened the contact list on their phone. They found the person who kept feeding their fear. This person had often reminded them of old failures. They made doubt sound like wisdom. They made avoidance feel safe. Your soulmate finally saw the damage clearly. Their thumb hovered above the screen. Their breathing became heavy. Then they ended that influence. No angry words were spoken. No public scene followed. They simply chose peace over confusion. That choice became the first visible proof of their silent decision. It showed that they were no longer protecting habits that kept them distant from you. My beloved child, they knew cutting away that influence might leave them lonely. Still, they understood that loneliness was better than false guidance. When the screen went dark, the room felt different. Nothing outside had changed. Everything inside had. Yet another connection still needed to be faced. The second connection was not another person. It was an old version of themselves. Your soulmate had carried that identity for years. It told them they would always disappoint people. It told them closeness would eventually expose their weakness. It told them leaving first was safer than being left. These thoughts had shaped their choices without permission. That morning, they stood before a bathroom mirror. Their eyes looked tired. They remembered every time they had withdrawn from your kindness. They remembered how you offered patience, then received silence. Their face tightened with regret. They could no longer call fear a personality trait. They could no longer excuse distance as independence. My child, they spoke softly to their reflection. I cannot keep becoming the reason I lose what matters. Those words were not meant for you. They were a confession before me. In that quiet space, they decided to stop defending behavior that wounded both hearts. They chose responsibility. That choice prepared them for something they had avoided since the separation. They returned to the unsent message. This time, they did not begin with romance. They began with truth. They wrote that their silence had caused pain. They admitted that fear made them act cold. They acknowledged that your patience deserved honesty. Then they stopped. Their eyes filled with tears because those sentences felt more vulnerable than saying they missed you. Missing you was easy to admit privately. Taking responsibility was harder. My beloved child, this is why their decision remained silent. They were not searching for words that would impress you. They were searching for words that would respect you. Several drafts disappeared. Each one sounded too focused on their feelings. They wanted the message to carry more than longing. They wanted it to show change. So they placed the phone aside again. They knew an apology without consistent action would only reopen wounds. That night, they made another decision. They would not send anything until they could answer one honest question. What would they do differently if you allowed a conversation? That question followed them into every quiet moment. It appeared while they drove beneath gray morning clouds. It returned while coffee cooled beside an open Bible. It remained while soft music played inside an empty kitchen. They began writing answers on paper. They would speak before fear became silence. They would ask questions instead of making assumptions. They would respect your boundaries without calling them rejection. They would stop seeking advice from people who celebrated confusion. They would pray before reacting. These were not promises made to win you. They were standards they needed for themselves. My child, their heart was becoming more disciplined. They were learning that love cannot survive on emotion alone. Love needs honesty. Love needs patience. Love needs responsibility. The decision that seemed connected only to your relationship was changing their entire character. Still, they feared one painful possibility. You might listen to everything and decide that too much damage had already been done. This fear almost pulled them backward. One afternoon, they saw something that reminded them of you. It was a simple place where you once laughed together. They remained inside their car. Their hand rested against the steering wheel. For several minutes, they did not move. They imagined seeing you again. They imagined your guarded eyes. They imagined the silence after their apology. Their chest tightened. The old instinct told them to forget everything. It told them that trying would only create more pain. Then they remembered their prayer. Help me accept truth without running. My beloved child, courage answered quietly. They realized their responsibility was not to control your response. Their responsibility was to become honest. This released something inside them. They no longer needed a guaranteed outcome before doing what was right. They could offer truth and still honor your choice. That understanding changed the tone of the message they would eventually send. Yet before they reached for the phone, they needed to make peace with one memory. The memory involved the final conversation before distance grew between you. Your soulmate had misunderstood your silence that day. They believed you were preparing to leave. Instead of asking, they became defensive. Their words sounded careless. Your face changed. You tried to explain, but they had already closed inward. They remembered the exact moment you stopped trying. That moment had haunted them. For a long time, they told themselves you gave up too quickly. Now they saw the truth. You had reached emotional exhaustion. You were not punishing them. You were protecting what remained of your peace. My child, this realization humbled them. They sat at a table with their head lowered. A tear landed beside their hand. They finally allowed themselves to understand your pain without making it about their guilt. Guilt says, I feel terrible. Love asks, how did my actions affect you? Your soulmate crossed that line. It was another sign that their silent decision was becoming real. However, one final test would reveal whether they had truly changed. That test came through an unexpected message. Someone from their past contacted them with familiar words. The message offered comfort without accountability. It offered distraction without healing. In earlier days, your soulmate might have replied. They might have used that attention to avoid thinking about you. This time, they stared at the screen with calm eyes. They recognized the pattern. They did not need anger. They did not need revenge. They simply declined the invitation and closed the conversation. My beloved child, that moment mattered deeply. Nobody praised them. Nobody witnessed it. You did not know. Yet integrity often grows in unseen choices. They chose the future they were praying for instead of returning to what felt familiar. Afterward, they walked outside. A gentle wind moved through the trees. Their shoulders relaxed. They knew the decision was no longer only a thought. It had become behavior. Still, the most difficult action remained. They had to risk being fully seen by you. You have also been changing during this silence. You may not notice every difference. Yet your prayers sound different now. You no longer ask only for someone to return. You ask for wisdom. You ask for peace. You ask me to protect you from repeating old pain. That change is important. It means you are not waiting in the same emotional place. You are becoming able to receive truth without losing yourself. My child, this is why the timing could not be rushed. If the conversation happened earlier, their fear might have met your desperation. Confusion would have repeated itself. Now their growing courage can meet your growing discernment. This does not guarantee a perfect ending. It creates space for an honest beginning. Trust my timing. Do not force contact. Do not build certainty from signs alone. Let consistent actions reveal what words cannot. Your soulmate understands this more clearly now. That is why they have prepared something deeper than a romantic message. They have written a private commitment. It is not a promise that demands your answer. It is a list of choices they intend to live by. They will not disappear during difficult conversations. They will not punish you with silence. They will not ask you to carry their healing. They will not confuse intensity with faithfulness. They will speak honestly, even when honesty feels uncomfortable. They placed this page inside their Bible. It rests near a passage about love being patient and kind. When they closed the cover, sunlight touched the edge of the paper. They whispered your name once. Then they prayed for your peace before asking for their own desire. My beloved child, that prayer revealed the deepest change so far. They were no longer asking me to make you choose them. They were asking me to guide both hearts toward what is healthy and true. This is the decision that can change everything. Not because it controls your future, but because it ends the pattern that damaged your past. Soon, their silence will carry a different meaning. It will no longer be avoidance. It will be the final pause before honest action. Your soulmate has begun preparing to speak with humility. They know one conversation cannot repair everything. They know trust returns through time. They are willing to begin slowly. Yet there is something they still have not included in the message. It is a memory they kept hidden because it revealed how deeply your absence affected them. On one particular night, they heard your name during a prayer they were not expecting. That moment brought them to their knees. It also uncovered the exact fear that controlled every decision before now. My child, when you understand what happened during that prayer, you will understand why their next words may sound completely different from anything they said before. Keep your peace. The hidden decision has already changed them. Now the truth behind that decision is preparing to surface. My child, listen closely. That night felt different from every other night they had known. The room was silent. The clock moved slowly. A single lamp filled the corner with warm light. Your soulmate knelt beside the bed without knowing what to say. They had repeated many prayers before, yet this one carried no prepared words. They simply whispered, "Lord, show me what I have refused to see." They expected comfort. Instead, they were given clarity. A deep stillness settled over their heart. In that stillness, they realized the greatest obstacle had never been distance. It had been fear. They feared being known completely. They feared loving without control. They feared trusting someone enough to be vulnerable. My beloved child, that realization did not shame them. It freed them. They understood that hiding behind silence would never protect what they truly loved. It would only keep them separated from the life they had been praying to receive. That prayer marked the beginning of a new heart. When they stood up, nothing around them looked different. The furniture remained the same. The window remained closed. The night remained quiet. Yet inside, something had changed forever. They opened the Bible resting beside the bed. Their eyes fell upon words about patience, kindness, and truth. They read each line slowly. They stopped after every sentence. They asked themselves whether their actions reflected those words. Sometimes the answer was yes. Often it was no. Instead of turning away, they stayed with the truth. My child, this is how real healing often begins. It begins when someone chooses honesty instead of excuses. It begins when pride becomes humility. It begins when blame becomes responsibility. Your soulmate no longer wanted to appear loving. They wanted to become loving. That quiet decision continued shaping every thought that followed. Still, one memory remained untouched because it hurt too deeply. It was the memory of the last time they believed they had truly seen joy in your eyes. The sun had been setting. Gentle light rested across your face. You laughed without pretending. For one brief moment, they felt completely safe beside you. Then fear quietly entered their heart. Instead of receiving that peace, they questioned it. They wondered how long it would last. They wondered when everything would fall apart. My beloved child, fear has a way of stealing blessings before they disappear. Your soulmate finally understood this. They realized they had spent more time preparing for loss than appreciating love. That truth broke something inside them. Tears filled their eyes again. They thanked me for allowing them to remember that simple moment. Not because it brought pain, but because it reminded them of what was worth protecting. From that evening forward, they stopped asking why they lost peace. They began asking how they could become someone who protects it. Days passed quietly. They spoke less. They listened more. Friends noticed a difference but could not explain it. They became slower to react. They no longer argued to prove themselves right. They no longer searched for quick comfort whenever difficult emotions appeared. Instead, they brought those emotions before me. My child, every hidden prayer strengthened the decision they had already made. Growth often happens where applause never reaches. Nobody celebrated these quiet victories. Nobody posted about them. Nobody even knew they were happening. Yet heaven noticed every honest step. Heaven noticed every temptation they refused. Heaven noticed every selfish thought they surrendered. Those unseen moments were preparing them for a conversation that would require far more than beautiful words. They were preparing them to become trustworthy. One afternoon they found the small box containing old keepsakes. Inside rested a ticket stub, a folded note, and one photograph they had almost thrown away many times. Their fingers paused above the picture. This time they did not look at it with regret. They looked at it with gratitude. They thanked me for allowing someone like you to enter their life, even if only to reveal the places that still needed healing. That prayer surprised them. Before, every memory brought sadness. Now it brought purpose. They understood that even painful seasons had not been wasted. My beloved child, I never waste surrendered hearts. Every tear offered to me becomes part of healing. Every lesson received with humility prepares you for greater peace. Your soulmate finally believed this. Yet another important decision was waiting only a few days away. An unexpected opportunity appeared before them. It would have been easy to leave everything behind and continue living without facing the past. For a few hours they considered it. Starting over somewhere else sounded easier than risking rejection. They imagined never having to explain anything. They imagined forgetting every unfinished feeling. Then they remembered the prayer beside the bed. They remembered asking me for truth. Running would have betrayed that prayer. So they quietly refused the easy escape. My child, courage rarely feels dramatic. Most of the time it feels like choosing what is right while your hands still tremble. Your soulmate walked away from comfort because they no longer wanted temporary relief. They wanted lasting peace. That choice strengthened the silent decision even more. You may have wondered why your own heart has felt strangely calmer lately. It is not because every answer has arrived. It is because I have been teaching you to rest before receiving explanations. My beloved child, peace is not the reward at the end of faith. Peace is something I give while faith is still growing. Without realizing it, you have stopped carrying every burden alone. You have started placing unanswered questions into my hands. This change matters. If the coming conversation happens, you will hear it with a steadier heart. If it takes longer than expected, you will still remain secure. Your identity no longer depends upon another person's decision. That freedom allows love to become healthy instead of fearful. Your soulmate senses this change without fully understanding it. They no longer picture you as someone waiting helplessly. They picture you becoming stronger. That thought both humbles and inspires them. It reminds them they cannot return with half-hearted effort. They must return with honesty. They must return with consistency. They must return ready to accept whatever answer you freely give. My child, this is the greatest difference between who they were and who they are becoming. Before, they wanted control. Now they seek truth. Before, they feared vulnerability. Now they welcome it. Before, silence protected pride. Now silence has prepared humility. Soon they will hold the phone again. Soon they will read the message one final time. But before they press send, one unexpected event will unfold. It will not come from their plans. It will arrive through a quiet moment that only I could arrange. That moment will confirm whether they are acting from fear or from genuine transformation. When you hear about what happened just before that message was finally ready, you will understand why I allowed every season of waiting. Remain patient, my child. The silence has almost completed its purpose, and the next step will reveal far more than either of you expected. My child, listen carefully. The quiet moment arrived without warning. Your soulmate was not expecting anything unusual that morning. They entered a small church before the day became busy. Sunlight stretched across the wooden floor. A few candles flickered gently. No one spoke to them. No dramatic sign appeared. Only silence remained. They sat in the last row with their hands folded together. They closed their eyes and whispered, "Lord, if my heart is still chasing comfort instead of truth, show me before I speak." They did not ask me to guarantee your answer. They asked me to purify their motive. That prayer pleased me because it came from humility instead of fear. My beloved child, hearts begin changing forever when they seek truth more than outcomes. They remained there for several minutes. Their breathing slowed. Peace quietly replaced anxiety. They realized they no longer needed perfect confidence before taking an honest step. They only needed faithfulness. That realization became the final foundation beneath the decision they had been carrying in silence. As they walked outside, a gentle breeze moved through the trees. The morning air felt fresh. They noticed details they would have ignored before. Birds rested on nearby branches. Children laughed across the street. A family greeted one another with warm smiles. Ordinary moments suddenly felt meaningful. My child, healing often changes the way people see simple things. A grateful heart notices blessings that fear once overlooked. Your soulmate smiled quietly. Not because every question had been answered. Because hope had returned. They understood that peace was not found by controlling tomorrow. Peace was found by trusting me today. That truth followed them throughout the afternoon. Each hour strengthened their resolve. Every passing moment reminded them that silence had already completed its purpose. Yet before reaching for the message once more, they remembered one person they still needed to forgive. The person was themselves. This was the hardest part. They had apologized to me many times. They had admitted mistakes. They had accepted responsibility. Still, shame continued whispering that they would never deserve another chance. Shame kept repeating old failures. Shame kept reminding them of every painful conversation. My beloved child, shame is different from conviction. Conviction leads hearts toward healing. Shame tries to keep hearts trapped in yesterday. Your soulmate finally understood the difference. They opened their Bible again. They slowly read about grace. They realized I had already invited them to walk forward. Only they continued standing still. Tears filled their eyes. They bowed their head. Lord, they whispered, teach me to receive the mercy you freely offer. That simple prayer lifted a heavy burden. They stood again with lighter shoulders. Their heart was no longer chained to yesterday. It was finally learning how to walk toward tomorrow. Meanwhile, something beautiful was quietly happening inside you. My child, while your soulmate was learning responsibility, you were learning peace. You began noticing that your mornings felt calmer. You no longer rushed to search for hidden meanings in every silence. You spent more time with me than with your worries. Your prayers became softer. They became stronger too. Instead of asking only for answers, you asked for wisdom. Instead of asking only for reunion, you asked for whatever would bring lasting peace. That prayer reached my heart. It revealed maturity. I saw your late-night tears. I also saw your growing trust. You were becoming someone who could recognize healthy love instead of simply longing for familiar love. That change mattered deeply. It prepared your heart for whatever would come next. Your soulmate sensed this change even without speaking to you. They could not explain why. They simply felt that something was different. They no longer imagined you trapped in sadness. They imagined you standing with quiet confidence. That image inspired them. It also humbled them. They realized they could never return expecting everything to remain the same. Time had changed both of you. Waiting had shaped both hearts. My beloved child, this is why I did not rush the process. Quick answers often satisfy emotions for a moment. Slow healing transforms lives for years. The decision made in silence was becoming stronger every day because it rested upon truth instead of excitement. Excitement fades. Truth remains. Your soulmate finally understood this difference. One evening they opened the message again. This time they read every word aloud. They listened carefully. Some sentences sounded sincere. Others still carried hidden fear. They removed those lines. They erased anything that asked for sympathy. They erased anything that quietly blamed circumstances. They wanted every word to reflect honesty. They wanted every sentence to honor your freedom. My child, truth never needs manipulation. Truth speaks with humility. Truth accepts whatever response follows. Your soulmate rewrote the message from beginning to end. It became shorter than before. Simpler too. Yet every sentence carried greater weight because nothing false remained. They looked at the final words for several minutes. Their thumb moved toward the screen. Then they paused once again. Not because fear returned. Because one final prayer still needed to be spoken. Lord, they whispered, if speaking now will only reopen wounds before healing is ready, teach me patience. If speaking now is the right step, give me courage without pride. My beloved child, that prayer revealed everything. They were no longer asking me to arrange life around their desire. They were surrendering their desire into my hands. This is where genuine peace begins. It begins when trust becomes greater than control. A deep calm settled over them. They smiled through quiet tears. Whether the message was sent that day or another day mattered less than before. Their heart had already changed. That change could never be taken away. You who are listening, remember this carefully. The greatest miracle is not always an immediate reunion. Sometimes the greatest miracle is becoming the person who can finally love without fear. I have been working in unseen places. I have been softening stubborn thoughts. I have been replacing panic with peace. I have been teaching both hearts that real love grows best where honesty and grace walk together. Continue praying instead of worrying. Continue trusting my timing. Every faithful step matters, even when nobody else notices it. I see what others cannot. I know what others never hear. I understand every hidden tear and every quiet prayer offered in faith. There is still one moment you do not know about. It happened only hours after your soulmate finished that message. Someone unexpectedly spoke your name during an ordinary conversation. The words were simple. Yet they stirred something so deeply that your soulmate immediately understood why I had delayed everything until now. That unexpected conversation became the final confirmation they had quietly asked me for. My child, when you discover what was said and why it changed everything inside them, the reason behind every silent decision will become even clearer. Hold on to your peace. Keep trusting me. The next step is closer than either heart realizes. My child, listen closely. The conversation happened on an ordinary afternoon. Nothing about the day seemed unusual. Your soulmate was standing beside a small coffee shop, waiting quietly. The sky was clear. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. They expected nothing more than another peaceful hour. Then an older believer from their church greeted them with a warm smile. The conversation began with simple questions about life, work, and faith. Suddenly, without knowing your situation, that person softly said, "Sometimes God teaches us that the right apology is not about getting someone back. It is about becoming someone who finally tells the truth." Those words settled deeply inside your soulmate's heart. They stood silent for several moments. They felt no pressure. They felt no fear. They simply recognized that they had been preparing for this very lesson throughout the season of waiting. My beloved child, sometimes I use ordinary voices to remind my children of truths they have already been learning in prayer. Your soulmate walked away slowly after that conversation. They did not rush toward their phone. They did not immediately send the message they had prepared. Instead, they found a quiet place beneath a large tree in a nearby park. Children laughed in the distance. Birds crossed the afternoon sky. Everything around them seemed peaceful. They looked down at their hands and realized they were no longer shaking. Weeks earlier, fear controlled every thought about you. Now peace quietly stood where fear had once lived. My child, peace does not erase uncertainty. Peace teaches the heart how to move faithfully even when every answer has not yet appeared. Your soulmate thanked me for changing them before changing their circumstances. That prayer revealed a heart growing in wisdom instead of urgency. As the afternoon became evening, they opened the message one final time. Every sentence felt honest. Every word felt gentle. Nothing asked for pity. Nothing demanded another chance. The message simply acknowledged the past with humility and spoke about the changes taking place within their own heart. Before pressing send, they stopped once more. They asked themselves one final question. If no reply ever comes, will I still be grateful that I chose honesty? The answer surprised them. It was yes. My beloved child, that answer mattered more than any message itself. It showed they were no longer measuring obedience by the response they hoped to receive. They had learned that doing what is right carries value even when the outcome remains unknown. At the same time, I continued working within your own heart. You may have noticed a quiet confidence growing inside you. Situations that once filled you with anxiety no longer controlled your thoughts. You began enjoying peaceful mornings again. You smiled more often. You spent less time imagining every possible future. Instead, you trusted me one day at a time. My child, this was never wasted waiting. Every peaceful decision you made became part of your own healing. Every prayer offered with sincere faith strengthened you. I was preparing you not only for answers but also for wisdom. Wisdom allows love to grow without losing peace. That is why I cared so deeply about your heart throughout this season. Your soulmate also noticed another change. They no longer felt the need to explain every detail of the past to everyone around them. They became comfortable allowing their actions to speak louder than their explanations. Friends noticed greater patience. Family members noticed greater kindness. Conversations became calmer. Reactions became slower. These were quiet changes, yet they revealed genuine growth. My beloved child, lasting transformation is often recognized in daily choices rather than dramatic moments. A changed heart becomes visible through consistency. It appears in ordinary conversations, gentle responses, and faithful decisions made when no one is watching. One evening they visited the same church once again. Soft worship music filled the room. The sanctuary remained peaceful. They sat quietly near the back, holding the folded paper that contained their personal commitment. They read each promise slowly. None of those promises mentioned perfection. Every one of them reflected honesty, patience, humility, and respect. They smiled gently because they realized those promises had already begun shaping their life. They no longer viewed change as something waiting in the future. They were living it already. My child, this is how hope quietly becomes reality. One faithful step at a time. Before leaving the church, they whispered another prayer. Lord, help me honor this person whether our paths meet again or not. Help me become someone who reflects your grace every day. That prayer carried no hidden conditions. It simply expressed trust. My beloved child, trust is one of the greatest gifts faith can produce. It frees the heart from constant fear. It allows love to remain gentle instead of demanding. It creates room for wisdom to guide every next step. I smiled upon that quiet prayer because it reflected the work I had been doing all along. You who are listening, remember this. Real healing never asks you to abandon discernment. It invites you to hold both hope and wisdom together. If a meaningful conversation comes, receive it with a peaceful heart. Listen carefully. Notice actions as much as words. Allow honesty to build trust over time. If more waiting is needed, continue walking faithfully without fear. My child, your future is not held together by human certainty. It is held securely within my care. Continue praying instead of worrying. Continue trusting my timing. The quiet decision your soulmate made has already changed who they are becoming, and that change is preparing both hearts for whatever faithful step comes next. My child, listen closely. As this message comes to its end, remember what truly changed everything. It was not one text message. It was not one emotional moment. It was a heart that chose honesty over fear. It was a life that began seeking truth instead of comfort. That is where lasting change begins. Do not allow anxiety to write the next chapter of your life. Let faith guide your steps. Keep praying instead of worrying. Keep trusting even when you cannot yet see the full picture. I am still working in places beyond your sight, shaping hearts, opening doors at the right time, and teaching wisdom through every season. If the person you care about has truly grown, that growth will become visible through consistent actions, not only beautiful words. Give truth the time it needs to be seen. Healthy love never demands that you ignore wisdom. It invites you to walk forward with peace, grace, and discernment. Never believe that waiting with faith is the same as standing still. Every prayer has been shaping you. Every difficult day has been building strength. Every moment you chose forgiveness over bitterness has prepared your heart for a healthier future. Whether your path leads to restored love or to a new beginning, you are never walking alone. Do not be afraid of tomorrow. The one who holds tomorrow is already with you today. Keep your heart open. Keep your spirit gentle. Continue becoming the person you were created to be. The right relationships will never require you to abandon your peace or your identity. Carry hope with humility. Carry love with wisdom. Carry faith with courage. Let patience have its work. Let grace guide your conversations. Let truth remain your foundation. What is built on honesty, compassion, and faithful character will always stand stronger than what is built on fear or uncertainty. If this message encouraged your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. There are many people quietly carrying questions that only peace can answer. Sometimes a simple reminder to trust God can become the encouragement someone has been praying to receive. Thank you for listening with an open heart. May you continue walking in faith, surrounded by hope, strengthened by grace, and filled with the peace that comes from trusting God's perfect timing. Amen.